Hello. I guess this is more of a story time than anything else. The other day, I was walking to the supermarket to ShopRite, and I was picking up some dog food, not for myself, but for the dog. And on my way back, I run into this little old lady. She's sort of bent over and looks up at me. Outside in the snow, she's wearing a mask outside, which I don't know. Some people are frightened enough that they'll. Actually, now that I think about it, this woman was wearing a mask outside in the snow, and she looks at me and says, "The end is coming." And I said, "What end? End of what?" She said, "The end of the world. That's what the Jehovah's Witnesses are teaching." And I thought, "Oh, okay. Thank you." And I just kept going. And, now that I think about it, just right now, if you are convinced that the world is going to end sometime soon, why are you that concerned about coronavirus outside in the snow? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But then again, I was never really afraid of the whole coronavirus thing. Then again, I wasn't one of the risk groups. I figure if you're in the risk group, then you have something to be afraid of. If you're not in one of the risk groups, then it sucks. It sucks to get coronavirus. I got it very early on. I was laid up in bed for a few days, and that was about it. And I can see how if you have breathing problems or whatever, then it's kind of scary. It was scary because you cough and you don't stop coughing. You just keep coughing, and it. Anyway, it was not very fun. Lost a bit of weight out of it, so it's not all bad news. But anyway, I find it interesting that that religious people will come up to you and say such a thing. I have another story, something similar to that, but a little bit more. Well, you'll see. So, I just finished my first semester in my grad school for economics, and it was a first semester, first year. So it was about May, June, and my mom said, "Well, why don't we go to France?" And so we went to Brittany. So, party time, hanging out with mom over in France. But, I always enjoy going to France. I lived there for about 3 years, and I love it. There are aspects of it that drove me crazy, but that you could say that about home. So we were there during the end of the world. Apparently, I think this was back in 2000, I want to say 12, 13, 12, something like that. Anyway, there was a guy going around saying it's the end of the world, and everybody was kind of ready to wait and pointing and laughing at him, waiting for the end of the world not to come. Obviously, it didn't come. Maybe he had to wait about 10 years or so. So anyway, it was just kind of a joke. Obviously, things didn't end up according to his calculations. So we had fun, as much fun as you can have with your mother. But, she's a pretty good sport. I think she just wanted to go over there. I speak French, and so she can have somebody to translate for her. So anyway, on the way back, the flight was delayed. I think there was something wrong with the little inflatable slide that allows you to slide out of the plane onto the water, as if that's ever really a problem. So they were looking around to see if they can get on other planes, and then they couldn't do that. So they ended up giving us basically you couldn't sit in the middle part of the plane where the slide was not going to work. And so it took hours and hours and hours. And the thing about airline companies is that they don't really tell you how long it's going to take. Maybe perhaps because they don't know how long it's going to take, or perhaps they know it's going to take 3 hours, and telling people it's going to take 3 hours is going to cause a riot. So they keep telling you half an hour. Well, it'll be another half an hour. Oh, it'll be another half an hour. And then they do this about 5 or 6 times, and you just stop believing them. You're so exhausted, and you basically just keep them. Because 5 minutes from now, well, why don't we just start boarding? Half an hour is just far enough that it doesn't, you're not getting ready to go on the plane, but anything more than that, people start getting pissed off at you. I think that's how it works, but I could be wrong. Anyway, everyone in the same area is just sitting there, and they're really fed up because it's been like 3-4 hours that we've been waiting at least we were in the airport, right? Rather than on the tarmac, which would drive anyone nuts. So we get on the plane, and my mom and I are the last to get on. And everyone is looking at us as if we're the ones who caused the problem. So we're the last to get on. I get on, and we're not sat in the same area. So I put my stuff in, and I sort of sit down, and then we go. And so I'm sitting in an aisle, the sort of middle bit, where there's 3 seats. There's me on the right side. There's a little kid, probably about 8 years old, 9 years old, and his mother all the way on the left side. So this is out of Paris to Philadelphia. And so it turns out that the mother and the kid are English. And so I thought, okay, da-da-da. So the kid starts asking, he's reading comic books. He starts asking me about what I think about comic books. And I thought, comic books. I haven't dealt with comic books in a very long time. I think there was about a year of my childhood where I was interested in them, and then I just got bored of them. So I had a little bit of interest in them. Actually, I wasn't even interested in comic books per se. I liked they came out with these little comic book, almost like baseball cards, where they would show it was almost identical to baseball cards, where it's like the first appearance, so like your debut, and basically like your different powers and things like that, and if you're like married to another superhero or something like that. I found them more interesting than the comic books themselves. Anyway, so I was like, okay, yeah, Spider-Man, who's his big enemy? But also in the same way that it didn't really matter if I knew what he was talking about. It was more of just engaging the kid, because a kid who's talking is much more interesting than a kid who's crying and being really annoying. And, I like kids, so we had a little bit of fun. And so his mother tells him, I forget his name, says, oh, you got to put down your comic books now, and you got to read your French books. So, and the mother sort of explains over top of the kid to me that they are so she's English, the kid is English, the daughter and the father are sitting behind them. The daughter is also English, but the dad's German, but they live in France. And so I thought, oh, okay. She said, yeah. So he has to do remedial reading because his French is not very good. We just moved there a year ago, and so it's already hard enough to get a kid to read in his own language, let alone in a foreign language that he doesn't understand very well. And she said, I don't really speak French. I'm learning myself. And I said, oh, I lived there for a little bit. And, if you want me to help out, I'm just this is comic books or this other sort of kids book. It's not too different from a comic book, except for there's no supernatural stuff in it. I think it was Jack and the Beanstalk. And I thought, oh, I don't mind. I can help him out, help him sound out things and ask him questions. Sort of, because I used to be a teacher in English. So you know how to like elicit, you basically elicit answers by giving questions, and you can check for comprehension that way. And she said, "Oh, great! If you don't mind, I don't want to be a pain in your ass." Or no, she didn't say that, but she just said, "Oh, I don't want to be a bother to you." And I thought, "No, it's not bother." So it's like I'm just glad he's happy, if you know what I mean. And she's like, "Yeah, yeah." And so we read that for a bit, and then we went back to comic books. And then, so after about an hour and a half, and it really does sort of take the monotony of being on a plane away. I don't like being on planes. It's not that I'm afraid of crashes or turbulence or anything like that. I just don't like being confined. You're just cooped up in a big metal tube in the air. It just doesn't feel natural, and it just makes me nervous. But anyway, so it was a good sort of something to preoccupy me. And so so then he puts down the comic books and he looks at his mother, and then almost like a sort of, yeah, let's do this. What's going on here? Well, maybe they're going to do their own thing. So, so he gets his little book bag from underneath the table, and he brings it up and he puts it in his lap, and he says, "I want to show you something important to me." And I thought, oh, okay, is this like maybe he's likes to draw or something? I don't know. Something. It's like, how many secrets can an 8-year-old kid have, And he's like, you promise not to laugh? I said, no, of course not. And so he pulls it out of the bag and he holds it to his chest, so I can't really see it, And he says, have you ever thought about God? And then he shows me this, and it's the Watchtower magazine from the Jehovah's Witnesses. I said, I said in my mind, you little shit. You basically got me to read comic books with you, some French books, back to comic books. We spent 2 hours on this. This was one of the slickest long play sort of evangelizations I've ever seen in my life. And he did the whole spiel of blah, blah, blah. And to be honest with you, I wasn't paying attention. I just totally tuned him out. And I'm like, how you have an inner dialogue? You see this on TV where, yeah, And I'm just thinking, how the hell do I get out of this? I don't want to insult him because I just made a friend. On the other hand, I don't like being evangelized on the plane because you quite literally have a captive audience. And, I just, no. I don't know much about it, and but I kind of like it that way. So anyway, he's like, and then he looks at me as if to sort of draw a response from me, and I thought, oh shit, it's my turn to talk. So yeah, and you're trying to be as like diplomatic and nice as you can be to a kid, while being firm. Is like I said, well, religion's a very touchy subject with everybody. I didn't want to treat him like a baby, but then the other one, I didn't want to be too high. You have to maybe give a little bit more than what he's expecting from like his teacher. Give him the respect of a little bit more than humoring him totally. On the other hand, you don't want to just say, how dare you? Don't you have any sense of what's right and wrong in public or anything like that? So I basically just said, that's an interesting way. There are many ways of looking at God and the meaning of life and all that. I'm just trying to find my way out of this. And then the mom was like, she threw me a lifeline. She's like, that's okay. He really enjoys the church, and he wants to share with people. I said, that's nice. So he asked me if he would mind if I kept the magazine. So I said, sure. I'm sure they have a mountain of those at home. God knows if you see them out on the street, they're wheeling them around on like one of those little hand trucks. They really have their system down. You can always see them on the corner of the street. They're very, very happy people, but they don't do birthdays or Christmas. So I basically, and it's just like the problem was that it seemed like he was reciting it as if he had memorized the script. And he wasn't ready for a give and take on it. And so I basically kind of just rebuffed him a little bit in the nicest way possible. But it was such a surprise that I just did not see that coming. So he so he basically he just put on his headphones and just started coloring or whatever like that. And then his mom started talking to me about the religion. I said, look, I don't really know much about the religion. You know, I have gone to a few different churches in my time. I'm not particularly religious. I do have sympathies towards Christianity, but obviously I'm not a believer. And so anyway, I got the impression that she used to be a drug addict, and this kind of saved her, which makes a lot of sense. You know, that in times of crisis, Christianity can really save you. You know, and so when I think of these people, I have to the woman, you know, as wild as that experience was for me, I came away with a different attitude than I had before, because originally I might have been offended or annoyed or something like that, but I just thought, oh, well, the way that the kid and the mother put it to me, I'm actually quite touched, because if you think the way they think, imagine this, that you see a person in the road, and they can't breathe, and they just... Now, I used to be a lifeguard when I was younger, and so I could probably do the Heimlich maneuver. I could perform CPR. I could, you know, you can dig your finger out there, do chest compressions, the whole business. I think I could probably still do that. And so the thing is that you see somebody in imminent danger, and you want to help them to save their life. And this just takes it up to a higher level. These people see that your soul is in imminent danger, because if the end is coming, and it's coming at any moment now, and if you don't do what they want you to do, they think that you're going to hell. And so they want to throw you a lifeline to save you in the same way as basically giving you spiritual CPR or spiritual defibrillators or anything like that. And when you think about it in that frame, and these people are trying to either handing out Bibles, or at least just the Gospels, or handing out their newsletters, it's actually kind of touching if you think about it in a different direction. It is a bit presumptuous, but if they believe that they 100% that they have the truth on their side, then it makes sense that they would want to share that with everybody else in the same way that they would want to save your life. So I came away with that, you know, with that idea from that experience, which was... It was a painful experience, but I do have a lot more sympathy towards very religious people who approach others in a very friendly and helpful way, if that makes sense. I don't like the ones who are shouting that I'm going to hell. I mean, that's not, you know, you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Most people are not scared of your harsh words, but if you approach them, I always thought like this: if you were going to join a religion, or try to preach a religion, you have to do it in a way that effectively you have to be like a salesman. You have to appeal to a certain aspect of human psychology. You have to persuade them that I wouldn't lead with hell. Let's put it like that. I would not lead with the threat of hell or even the promise of heaven. I would actually, if I were going to sell religion, or let's just stick to Christianity because it's simpler. If you were going to sell Christianity to someone, I would sell it as this is a better way of living. It's cleaner living. You don't have to think very much, about very heavy things. If you feel lonely, we feel lonely too. The religious people, if you read any religious texts, people like St. Augustine or even the Bible, like books like Job or the Lamentations of Jeremiah or the Psalms of David, there is a huge amount of depression going on in the Bible. And yet their faith remains steady, and that their faith is something that gets them out of it. That's how you sell religion. You don't scare the living hell out of people. And I think you have to see it as an answer to your problems rather than some vague threat of hell that no one's ever been sure of, or some vague promise of hell that no one's been ever been able to prove. You have to sell the lifestyle. And so you have to have a good lifestyle to back it up. And you just can't scare people into submission. So anyway, that's about all for today. I'll see you again in another video. Ta-ta!